You're watching All 24 News World News Program. To the headlines. Arab states say they've hit back at drones and ships. Tehran warns the US of unforeseen outcomes, and Trump threatens to blow up Iran's uranium if they get close to it. Sahrawis commemorate the Polisario's 53rd anniversary. Argentina says Morocco's occupation is a state terrorism, and human rights activists detail how the Makhzen blocks a vote on self-determination. And Moscow and Kiev trade blame over Victory Day ceasefire violations. Putin says he's open to meeting Zelensky to sign a deal soon. And top US delegation heads to Moscow to talk settlement. Welcome back. Qatar says a cargo ship in its waters was struck by a drone northeast of Mesaid port. Defense authorities reported a small fire that was quickly contained with no injuries. The ship en route from Abu Dhabi continued its journey to Mesaid as coordination efforts were launched. Doha condemned the incident as a serious escalation, calling it a breach of international law and a threat to maritime security and freedom of navigation. Kuwait says its air defenses intercepted hostile drones that entered its airspace early Sunday. The defense ministry said the targets were detected immediately and standard procedures were applied to deal with them in order to protect national sovereignty and security. A ministry spokesperson said the armed forces remain fully ready to safeguard the country and ensure the safety of citizens and residents. Reuters, citing Iraqi security sources, reports a drone attack in Erbil, northern Iraq, suspected to be Iranian. The strike reportedly hit a camp in the Wadi Alina area of Khalifan district, east of Erbil in the Kurdistan region. Security forces have tightened measures around the site. No immediate reports of casualties. Iran's Navy says it has deployed submarines in the Strait of Hormuz to monitor and intercept warships. Commander Shahram Irani said that domestically produced light submarines, known as the Persian Dolphins, carried out surface maneuvers to showcase naval capabilities before submerging again to continue their missions in the strategic waterway.
Locally manufactured light submarines adapted to threats, capabilities, and operational needs are deployed on the seabed in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz and are currently being positioned in a state of full readiness. Remaining deployed of extended periods in the depths of Hormuz waters, as well as interception and destroying various types of enemy vessels, are among the capabilities of the Dolphins of the Gulf submarines operated by the Navy of the Iranian Army.
Iran's military command has warned the United States against any military escalation, saying it could open new battlefields beyond conventional expectations. Armed Forces spokesperson said the element of surprise would be central to any future confrontation, adding that Iran has prepared advanced systems not previously disclosed. He also said any response could extend unexpected arenas that may shift the balance of power in the Middle East.
We warn the enemy that if it resorts once again the aggression due to the same miscalculations made in the past, it will pay the price for those previous mistakes. This time, they will certainly face all the unexpected options, more advanced weapons, renewed and unprecedented methods of warfare, and above all, new battle fronts. This means the war would enter a theater the enemy has never anticipated before.
Tensions are rising again in the Gulf after a U.S. flagship was attacked near Qatar, and Iran issued new warnings as Western military forces move closer to the Strait of Hormuz. Zarfajan reports.
The Gulf region is witnessing another dangerous escalation, with growing fears that tensions around the Strait of Hormuz could spill into a wider confrontation. A US-flagged cargo ship caught fire Sunday after being struck by what British maritime authorities described as an unidentified projectile while sailing northeast of Doha. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Agency said investigations are underway, while ships operating in the area have been urged to remain on high alert. The incident comes as Western powers move to strengthen their military presence in the region. Britain announced the deployment of the destroyer HMS Dragon to the Middle East ahead of a possible mission to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. According to Bloomberg, the move is part of joint British and French preparations aimed at protecting maritime traffic through the strategic waterway. France is also stepping up its presence. The office of President Emmanuel Macron confirmed that the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle is heading towards the southern Red Sea as part of preparations for potential operation linked to securing the strait. On the Iranian side, the tone is becoming increasingly defiant. Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei called for additional support measures for the armed forces, urging them to confront what he described as enemies with firmness and strength. Iranian state media reported that senior commanders briefed the Supreme Leader on the military readiness, saying the country is prepared to respond quickly to any attack or what they called a strategic mistake. The Revolutionary Guard says its forces are now on maximum alert, warning that any attack on Iranian oil tankers or commercial vessels would trigger strikes on American bases and ships in the region. In a message posted on X, the commander of Iran's aerospace force claimed Iranian missiles and drones are already positioned and aimed at U.S. targets and naval vessels near the Strait of Hormuz awaiting orders. Iranian military officials also warned countries enforcing U.S. sanctions against Tehran that they could face difficulties crossing the strait, underscoring the growing risk of further escalation in one of the world's most sensitive maritime corridors.
US President Donald Trump says Washington will ultimately secure Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, which he claims is buried under rubble. In a post on Truth Social, he said the material is under surveillance by what he called the US Space Force, adding it is being closely monitored. He warned that any attempt to approach the stock would be met with force.
Iran has been weakened but not eliminated. We could continue military strikes and target remaining sites if necessary, even without further attacks. It would take Iran years to rebuild. I acted because I was convinced Iran was moving toward acquiring a nuclear weapon, one that could threaten Israel and the wider Middle East.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says dialogue and negotiations do not mean surrender or retreat. In a post on X platform, he said talks with the United States are aimed at defending national interests and securing the rights of the Iranian people. He also stressed that Iran will not yield to what he described as the enemy, referring to the Zionist entity and the United States. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has accused the United States of trying to wage what he called an economic war after its military failure. In a speech to the Iranian people on Sunday, he urged citizens to counter what he described as a conspiracy. He also called for more rational energy use, stressing the need to curb consumption and achieve economic savings, which he said would reinforce military gains made by the armed forces.
After failing in military confrontation, the enemy is now seeking to shift the battle to the economic front. The leader of the Islamic Revolution has repeatedly stressed the importance of rationalizing energy consumption and strengthening social solidarity. The armed forces are fully carrying out their duties, which also requires citizens to play their part in reducing consumption in order to foil this conspiracy and consolidate the achievements made by the armed forces in the military field.
6 people have been killed and at least 19 others wounded in Israeli occupation airstrikes on southern Lebanon. The Lebanese Health Ministry says 4 civilians were killed and 14 others injured, including children and women, after strikes hit towns in the Tyre and Jazin districts. In Nabatia, 2 paramedics were killed and 5 others wounded when a health center in Binjbil was struck. 6 Palestinians were killed and others wounded in Zionist occupation airstrikes on the Maghazi and Khan Yunis refugee camps in central and southern Gaza Strip on Sunday. Occupation forces are also reported to have continued operations for the 213th consecutive day, with renewed aerial and artillery strikes on populated areas, sheltering displaced families alongside demolition activity within what is described as the Yellow Line, while the blockade on Gaza remains in place. The Sahrawi people are marking the 53rd anniversary of the founding of the Polisario Front, established on 10 May 1973. The occasion recalls key gains achieved under its leadership in the struggle for self-determination in Sagi al-Hamra and Rio de Oro. More on this story, Sofian Kinturi this time.
53 years ago, on May 10, 1973, the Polisario Front was founded as a political and military movement defending the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. Since then, the Western Sahara issue has entered a new phase, driven by political struggle and mobilization on the ground, with a stated aim of preserving Sahrawi national identity and amplifying the voice of the Sahrawi people on the international stage. This year's commemoration comes amid continued tensions in Western Sahara and renewed fighting following the collapse of the ceasefire in 2020 after Morocco's military operation in the Gergerat buffer zone. Across refugee camps, Sahrawi territories and diaspora communities, Sahrawi continue to reaffirm their support for the Polisario Front as the legitimate representative of their cause, while stressing their determination to pursue political and diplomatic mobilization. Over the decades, the Polisario Front has highlighted several diplomatic gains, including the recognition of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic by multiple countries and its status within the African Union as a founding member. At the same time, Sahrawi leaders continue to call on the international community and the United Nations to intensify efforts toward a just and lasting solution to the conflict, while denouncing what they describe as ongoing humanitarian rights violations in the occupied territories. The anniversary also serves as a movement of unity for Sahrawis, reaffirming their attachment to the national cohesion and to the continuation of their political struggle for independence. 53 years of political struggle and continued resistance, the Polisario Front maintains that Sahrawi issue remains an unresolved international question, awaiting a solution that fulfills the aspirations of the Sahrawi people.
Argentine human rights organizations have described Morocco's presence in Western Sahara as a state terrorism. Dozens of solidarity groups alongside parliamentarians and activists, including Nobel Prize laureate Adolfo Pérez Esquivel, issued a statement calling on Argentina to support the UN-led decolonization process in Western Sahara. The statement also praised the Polisario Front's commitment to the UN-sponsored peace process.
The Polisario Front is the legitimate representative of the Sahrawi people, as recognized by the United Nations, and it has been a serious interlocutor in the peace process sponsored by the organization. We call on the three branches of the Argentine state to maintain a position consistent with our country's diplomatic traditions in support of decolonization processes. Morocco's occupation of Western Sahara in what was called the Green March and its expulsion of thousands of Sahrawi families from their homes constitute state terrorism.
Argentine human rights groups accused the Makhzen regime of blocking a self-determination referendum, fearing the Sahrawi people's will for independence and freedom.
Western Sahara is a non-self-governing territory awaiting decolonization, and any solution to the conflict must be based on the free decision of the Sahrawi people to live independently and in peace with all their neighbors. The Sahrawis are still waiting for a self-determination referendum promised by the international community, which has yet to be held. Hassan II and his successor Mohammed VI obstructed the referendum because they were aware of the overwhelming desire of the Sahrawi people for independence.
The 12th Africa Investment and Trade Forum has concluded after 2 days of discussions bringing together economic stakeholders, international experts, and African figures. Participants highlighted Algeria's role in promoting sustainable development across the continent, praising its efforts toward broader economic transformation aligned with Agenda 2063 and South-South cooperation. Experts also described Algeria as a leading economic actor in Africa, framing its current engagement as a continuation of its historical support for African sovereignty and independence.
Algeria is very active in Africa, first and foremost politically, because it helped African countries gain their independence without having hidden agendas behind that support. Today, after most African nations have become independent, Algeria continues its economic engagement through its expertise and its support for the freedom of peoples. In general, Algeria is considered an economic pioneer, and for many African countries, it is like an elder sister or elder brother to look up to. Algeria remains a leading partner alongside African nations while maintaining humility in sharing its expertise, wisdom and experience.
A Russian trade official said Algeria represents the gateway to the African market for investments. Walid Boushakhala of the Krasnodar Chamber of Commerce added that the forum opened new horizons for investment between Russian and African companies.
Today we are counting on this meeting to open new horizons for investment between Russian and African companies. Algeria is a wide gateway to the African market in the field of investment and joint cooperation. As we know, Russian-Algerian economic relations rely on this market and are achieving rapid progress in joint cooperation across several sectors, including industry, technology, agriculture, and other fields.
Algeria and Mauritania signed 25 new agreements at the 8th Algerian Products and Services exhibition in Nouakchott, taking the total to 52 deals. Officials say the accords span multiple sectors and underline the event's role as a platform for economic partnership in Africa. Karim Musfawi has more in this report.
A new chapter in Algerian-Mauritanian economic relations are taking shape since the launch of the 8th edition of the Algerian Products and Services exhibition in Nouakchott. 52 agreements and memoranda of understanding have been signed between economic operators from both countries, covering a wide range of strategic sectors, from industry to mechanical and mining industries, electrical cable manufacturing, healthcare services, and medical supplies.
This strong presence in Nouakchott today, I say again, reflects the political will of the leaders of both countries. It reflects the ambition of both countries, and now, thank God, this has transcended the popular level. There will be other economic events that will be even bigger, God willing. Through you, the businessmen, you are also true ambassadors.
This agreement, signed during the Nouakchott Trade Fair, reflects a shared ambition to deepen investment opportunities and expand economic cooperation between the two neighboring countries, Algeria and Mauritania. They also underscore Algeria's strategy to strengthen its economic presence throughout Africa.
Moving on to another topical news story. Russia and Ukraine have exchanged accusations over violations of their ceasefire agreement, citing renewed drone activity and fighting. Russia's defense ministry says it shot down 57 Ukrainian drones, insisting it is still observing the Victory Day ceasefire. Ukraine, meanwhile, accuses Russia of launching drone strikes and reports around 150 battlefield clashes, despite the ceasefire brokered by Washington. Russian President Vladimir Putin says the war in Ukraine is approaching its end and signals readiness for a conditional meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Speaking at a Victory Day press conference, Putin said he is prepared to host Zelensky in Moscow at any time. He also suggested a meeting in a third country would be tied to signing a final peace agreement, addressing what he called the root causes of the conflict.
Anyone wishing to meet me is welcome to come to Moscow. This is not a direct invitation to Zelensky, but I am prepared to meet him here or elsewhere, provided a long-term peace agreement is reached beforehand. Any meeting should take place within the framework of a final deal, not during the negotiations themselves.
The Russian news agency Interfax reported a high-level U.S. delegation will visit Moscow soon to discuss the settlement in Ukraine. An advisor to President Putin said U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner will lead the delegation to continue dialogue and give new impetus to negotiations. Turning to other news now, Spain's health ministry announced the start of the evacuation of more than 100 passengers and crew from a cruise ship where a hantavirus outbreak is detected. The MV Hondius arrived early Sunday at the Granadilla port in Tenerife in the Canary Islands, where evacuation began after final checks and disembarkation procedures. Authorities said the first evacuees are Spanish nationals transferred ashore by boat and then by sealed buses to the airport, before being flown to Madrid on a government aircraft with no contact with the public. The energy crisis fueled by the Middle East tensions and a reliance on fuel imports is driving down industrial production and disrupting daily life in many countries. In Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka, queues outside gas stations are growing longer by the hour. Sarmasi reports now.
As fuel shortages worsen in Bangladesh, motorcycle owners queue for hours outside gas stations hoping to refill their tanks. On foot, Takil Islam, a ride-share driver, pushes his motorcycle toward a gas station. In Bangladesh capital, Dhaka, filling up a tank has become an exhausting test of patience.
If this situation continues, we may have to return to our village and find another way to earn a living. Under these conditions, it is impossible to survive in Dhaka as rideshare driver.
After losing his life savings, Islam turned to motorcycle ride-sharing to support his family. His clothing business was driven to closure by mounting economic pressures. Now, nearly 2 months after the outbreak of a war in the Middle East, Bangladesh is feeling the full impact of the global energy crisis. The country relies on Gulf nations for 95% of its energy imports, a dependence that is increasingly threatening the garment industry, the cornerstone of Bangladesh's economy.
The raw materials like swing threads, polybags, cartons, it derives from petroleum. So basically there's a crisis because of the disruption in the raw materials. So all the suppliers have increased their prices of swing threads, polybags, and other accessories items of garments. For that reason, the cost of doing business for exporting the garment have been increased quite significantly in past 1 month.
Now, the situation in Bangladesh is that there were pre-existing vulnerabilities and challenges, in particular on the economic and employment front. So the challenge is that the development after the Middle East were actually adding to those challenges.
According to the president of the Bangladesh Chamber of Industry, exports to Europe and the United States could soon decline sharply. Deliveries have already dropped between 5 and 13% in recent months, raising fears that international buyers may begin to lose confidence in Bangladesh's ability to meet its commitment.
And that's all for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.